We are live. Welcome to the Arsenal Vision post-match podcast, live broadcast celebrating that Aubameyang has signed. And I have to say, one of the most shocking announcements. I don't think we saw this coming. I don't think we knew it was going to happen. I don't think we felt we could. I'm kidding. Of course, we knew it was coming. We were desperate for it to happen, and it has happened. And so now we can discuss it happening and what it means, and we can ask all kinds of fun questions and things like that. And we are going to do that with my guest, who I will announce or introduce now, I should say. Hello, Tim. How are you today?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. It's been a nice day, hasn't it, to be an Arsenal fan?
I would say it has been a nice day to be an Arsenal fan. Aubameyang has signed, and it is one of these things, Tim, that I think we'll get into the minutia of like what we really think about this and what it means for us going forward and with the project, but just in the sheer dynamism of the announcement. I'm kidding. Why don't you give me your sense of how this went down? So I'm on Twitter, as you know, I'm sort of a Twitter person, and yeah, I have to say that like the way it was executed on Twitter was bizarre, right? So like they've got him holding the phone, talking into apparently Instagram Live, while us on Twitter just sort of like we were kind of like at the window with our faces pressed up against the glass, kind of seeing Instagram Live being recorded. Did that work for you? It didn't super work for me.
I mean, it did for me because I have Instagram. So,
all right. So you were on Instagram. Okay.
Yeah. So
I didn't realize to switch over. Yeah.
What was really absurd was that me and my wife were both watching it at the same time on our phones, about 2 yards away from each other. So while I was kind of watching it on Twitter, Debs was like, "No, put it on Instagram." Instagram's okay, Instagram, and then we had it on like surround sound. I thought it was brilliantly done, to be honest. I think the Arsenal social media team have played a blinder a few times this summer, and it's getting harder and harder for them to do this stuff because the thirst for transfer news is so much that we demand every single little update from every deal, and it makes it very, very drawn out and actually quite dull. And that happens because of us, by the way. That happens because we demand that. We're insatiable, and so it's so difficult for the club because they know it's not a surprise, so they have to come up with new ways of keeping it quite fresh. And my timeline was just everyone was watching this thing, and the people who thought it was, and I get it, some people think it's a bit too much and all of that, but I just tweeted, okay, turn off the live stream then. See, you're not, are you? You're watching it. Everyone's watching it. Everyone's talking about it. So, as a piece of kind of content, I guess, I thought it was absolutely golden. I think it's brilliant how they keep coming up with these kind of new ideas and these new ways of breaking these. Well, I say breaking, that's just it. They're not breaking them.
Yeah, I mean, I have to admit, right? Like the problem also is with the whole COVID thing, there's only so many ways, they can't have fans there. They can't build the excitement that way. How happy are you that there were no keepy uppies or anything like that? We've seen that go wrong in the past, and I'm just glad that Auba was spared. I'm sure he could have done almost as good a job as Holding did against Fulham, but no, we didn't have to suffer through that, right?
No, exactly. Leave that kind of stuff, leave that rubbish to like Barcelona and Real Madrid. Don't need that. I love the touch of him talking to Ian Wright in particular, and then Lacazette. I did that thing that everyone does when they're like, oh, imagine if they announce something else as well, when they never ever do it, like, because that just wouldn't happen. You'd know about it in advance. But when he said, let's ring someone else, I was kind of thinking, is this just going to be Lacazette, or is it like another new signing or something? But I thought really, really nicely done.
Yeah. By the way, I just want to mention Sherry G says Elliot's face and his voice does not match. I just want to be clear. This isn't actually my face. I am piping my voice through this face, and this is a rental face. So don't let that disturb you if that is an issue.
I'd get a refund if I were you.
Yeah, no, I have tried. Well, Tim, your voice doesn't match your face, mate. So there you go. So much for faces matching voices. But let's just really quickly do this. So obviously there were some people that I think would have liked the Aouar and Party and to be linked into this. Are you happy that they're doing those separately, or would you prefer them to just knock it out all in one fell swoop?
I don't think I can wait another month for the Aubameyang deal, to be honest. So no, I'm happy with this today, and we can concentrate on the rest of it another time. So perfectly happy with just one bit of good news.
Fair enough. I have done a thing where I have made our faces zoom in. It is a thing I wish I had not done, and I have undone it for the very reason that I have just stated. So let's not have that happen again. If you want to put some questions in the comments, we will throw some questions in there from the comments. So if you want to do that, we can definitely do it. One thing, Calvin Masterson says, bring out the Mustafi mask. If you've never seen live streams we've done before, I have a puppet Mustafi. I cannot find it. I blame my children, and I am very sorry because it is a favorite of mine. So yeah, I'm really sorry about that. So yeah, that was a hellish 5 seconds, presumably talking about the zoomed in faces. I totally have to agree. So Tim, all kidding aside, let's do some predictions here. Let's get into a little bit of what this is going to be. So first of all, how many league goals will Aubameyang score this season? We did the over-under. He's on 22 league goals, I think, the last 2 seasons, but his expected goals around the 16, 17 mark, I believe. I'm not going to look that up because when you're talking stats, accuracy is not really what it's about. It's more about a feeling, a narrative. I think I may have that wrong. But so if you had to guess, what do you predict? And here's what I'd like to do. It's a 3-year deal. Let's assume for a second he's here for the balance of the 3 years. What do you think is likely in terms of goal output for the 3 years?
So I think this year it'll be 20, again, around that mark. Might depend on penalties, because he had quite a few penalties last season. How many penalties do we get? How many of them does he take? Because Willian and Pepe take them as well. So does Lacazette. So I think that might decide it, to be honest. Honestly, I probably see that diminishing slightly, at least, the season after. So I mean, if we can get an average of 80, let's say we get 54 league goals out of these 3 seasons, I think that's a thoroughly decent return. But yeah, I don't see this season being that different to last season. I mean, he could get more, right? Because if we're creating more chances, and we don't have a few months of Emery, we don't have like all this upheaval, we have a more settled team, we have patterns of play, we have Willian as well, just adding something to that attack, then he could. But equally, he hasn't had any sort of injury since he's been at Arsenal. And if you're a pessimist, you could say he's due one. And that might, he might twist his knee or something and be out for like a month or 2 or whatever. Hopefully not a soft tissue injury or anything, which I think would be more worrying. It could happen, and that could impact it. But I think we're looking at around about 20 this season, and then maybe it will diminish after that. And I'm sure that in Arsenal's head, the way they're probably thinking of this and justifying maybe that 3rd year is, if they're thinking succession planning, they're probably looking at Martinelli at the moment, and Saka, and looking at those guys and thinking, okay, these are the guys who will start to pick up the end products more and more over the years. And hopefully, if you're an optimist, in Martinelli, we've kind of already got I'm not sure the replacement's the right word, but if and when Auba's output starts to drop, then Martinelli's will hopefully rise at a kind of, not an inverse rate, rise at the same rate.
I'm with you, sort of.
Yeah. So we'll see. But it just, all of this makes me wonder if we're reevaluating what a player's peak is, and whether we're still in this kind of stage where we group peaks, or whether actually the more tailored and individual like our focus becomes, that we recognize that players peak at different times. And Aubameyang is one of those players, a bit like Vardy at the moment, probably even a bit like Drogba. You would definitely not say his peak was when he was 23, 24, 25. His peak has been later in his career. So hopefully that continues, and even if we can get out of his 3rd year a player who's largely still very usable, still very reliable, and can still be that leader in the group and help bring some players like Martinelli on, then I think that would be a really good outcome.
Yeah, and what I have up on the screen right now is a spreadsheet of numbers, and I've been told that if you are making video content, the thing you got to get on the screen is as many numbers in spreadsheet format as possible. So that's what I've gone and done. But if you want to focus in on here, and I think I can even go right like that, and maybe that'll work and turn yellow, and it did. The 14.2 number there, that's his non-penalty expected goals last season. He scored 22 penalty goals. 15.7 was his XG with penalties in there. So he outproduced it by more than 6 goals. The season before, what you see, 20.8 XG or expected goals, and he scored 22 that season. So he really substantially formed it. And I guess, Tim, the question would be, if that's what's going to happen, if we're going to start to see a trend of the expected goals maybe dropping a little, and look, if you look over at the column a little bit more where you see 0.83 and 0.54, 0.47, look, that's his expected goals plus expected assists. Let's move over. This is riveting. You don't want to miss this. 0.69, 0.45. That's his expected goals per 90 the last 2 seasons. Again, without wanting to alarm anybody, you do see the decline, right? 0.95, 0.71, 0.69, 0.45. And so I will stop this immediately because I realize it is dreadfully obvious. But I only bring it up to make the point that the underlying metrics, our beloved underlying metrics, suggest that there has been a slight slowing down of goal scoring expectation, while admittedly he has gotten better at scoring some spectacular goals. And I assume that the thank you here from Cherry by AFC is thank you for getting the numbers off the screen. You know, at the moment, I choose both to come to Arsenal. I assume that's Aouar and Party, by the way. So what I would say is we're looking at a player who has underlying metrics that hint that he's not maybe doing the things he's always done at the level he did. But our eye test, which I acknowledge is very important too, says that this is a player that's in his pomp. He's scoring goals, I think, of a higher quality than he's scored. He's also doing this from a left wing position, which can explain why maybe some of those metrics aren't where they were when he was maybe more prominently a center forward. That's the thing I want to ask you about, though, Tim. Like, when it comes to signing Aubameyang to 3 years into his mid-30s, and you look at the running he has to do on the left wing and the fact that Arteta seems pathologically resistant to substituting him off, I mean, do you think that there should be or will be an effort to move him central, to prolong the career, to maximize the output that you get from this player? You know, especially if someone like Lacazette moves on. Because I think, you know, look, the way we build play, he's playing on the left for a reason, right? There's a reason he's getting chances from there. We're doing these big switches and building up on one side and pulling the defense out of shape and then creating the options on the weak side of the pitch. But it does require more running. It does sometimes keep him further from goal. Against Fulham, a lot of times he was initiating play instead of getting on the end of it. Would you like to see that change? I mean, is that a big part of prolonging his Arsenal career? You know, maybe he can get the 22 goals again this season at 31 years old, playing from the left. At 32, at 33, do we want him in a position where he doesn't have to do all that work?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's and again, I'm using the example of Jamie Vardy here, but one of the real successes Brendan Rodgers had with Jamie Vardy was limiting the space that he needs to run into. So what Rodgers did was he put like an extra number 10 back there, and he kind of so he's got like Maddison and Barnes behind him, and then there's legs to go around in that Leicester midfield with the likes of Ndidi and Tielemans. And so basically they were just like, look, don't worry about running from the halfway line anymore, just run in the final third. That's where we need you. And again, what I kind of see in terms of future-proofing this Arsenal attack is he's going to have young legs around him, Martinelli, Saka. What I would really like to see, actually, I kind of I'm still interested in the idea of Martinelli as a centre forward, and I guess what I'd really like to see us kind of move towards is almost having Martinelli and Aubameyang like a kind of rotating front two. Almost, and I don't know who that third player is. We spoke about Willian as the structure guy, right?
Yeah,
as the guy who lets other people have freedom. But you know, and kind of Lacazette's like that as well a little bit. But you know, I don't have a clear formation in my mind for this. It will depend on other players. But I'm thinking about like Saka being that link between midfield and attack, and then just in whatever positions they are, whether it's Aubameyang slightly wide and Martinelli centre, or vice versa, or them swapping all over the place. I really see like a front three in a couple of years that has like Saka either on the left or right, Martinelli coming from the other side, and basically just letting guys who will at that stage be 20, 21 years old, letting them do all of the running, letting Martinelli do the closing down, letting him chase after fullbacks. And that's one of the big advantages I think we've actually got here, is as much as we've got Lacazette, who's 29, we've got Willian, who's 32, and we'll have him till he's 35. There is some young talent there as well that I think can kind of create a bit more of a blend, and they're going to be experienced young players. When you come into a team when you're 18, 19, as we saw with someone like Fabregas and other players, by the time you're 22, you have like over 100 appearances. So that's what I hope to see. I hope to see those two players in particular really come up and do his running for him.
Yeah, I think that's well said. I'll get my predictions in. I think he can go. So here's what's interesting, Tim, and I said this on the regular pod. I could see him hitting 19 goals this season, but on more XG, meaning he will have played better. We will have played in more scoring positions, but just the variance doesn't go for him. Now, I mean, having said that, he scored a beauty at the weekend, a curler from the channel, and that seems to be a move that he's getting really comfortable with. But if he were to score 19 goals on better XG, what that would suggest to me is we're creating more chances. The offensive flow is better, and people like Willian and Pepe and Lacazette or Nketiah or Aouar and Partey and Thiago and Coutinho, they'll all pick up the slack, obviously. Can we get to a slightly more important question, though?
Shoot.
How nervous should I be when Auba does the front flip? This should be banned by the contract, shouldn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I'm always nervous, not least because he doesn't always. Well, he rarely nails the landing. Like, he doesn't land like that, does he? He always kind of lands like that, and that puts pressure on the old kind of lateral ligaments. So yeah, I would absolutely bet. I'd say, look, we've seen that. Like, you've done it in the cup final. Retire it now. That's it. There's no need to do it anymore. And particularly as he gets a bit older, yeah, I know the question's in jest, but yeah, I would certainly, if I were Mikel Arteta, I'd kind of be saying, are you sure you want to be doing that? And, to Jackie Boy's point, I cry internally every time. So do I. As someone who has torn knee cartilage before, even if I had the athleticism to do that, it would finish me. I'd snap in half. Yeah,
I mean, look, all it takes is one bad landing. All it takes is a wet pitch and his foot comes out from under him. I just don't. I know I'm a worrier. That's why my friends call me Whiskers. But yeah, it's one of those things that I can't watch it every time. It makes me nervous. And here's a good recommendation: reserve the flip for the Europa final. Yeah, I mean, he can do the front flip when he scores the winner in the Europa League final. So, I mean, just really quickly, I know it's off topic, but well, actually, let's stay on topic. We'll get to the transfer stuff in a minute. Let's talk about the deal economically. As you know, there are some people that don't enjoy happiness or fun or good things, and I don't want to point the blame at anybody like that. But there has been a suggestion that maybe re-signing him wasn't the right move, that there may have been a better way to do this. And, one of the things that I will say is that we have been linked with Odison Edward. I don't know how you say the first name, but Edward, highly thought of, highly rated. We do need to sort of think about the future at striker. You referenced Martinelli, and maybe he's a big part of that. And if you rate Nketiah, maybe he's a part of that. Balogun, I don't know if you saw, he posted a tweet. He tweeted the hourglass. So I don't know if that means he's staying or he's going. He's pissed off. Who knows? But, I do sort of wonder, having been linked to someone like that, Tim, when we sold Robin Van Persie, as much as I'm loath to bring it up, the next season we scored basically the same number of goals. I think we actually improved our points total, by 1 or 2 from the season before, I believe. It's unthinkable that we could be better or even nearly as good if Aubameyang were to go. It just feels like he carries so much of the burden of everything this team does. But we are now tying ourselves to a player who's going to be 31, 32, 33 on big money. We did that with Ozil, and as we know, it didn't really pan out. Fear of selling players like Ramsey and Alexis led us to doing things that we know didn't pan out. So do you have any time for the argument that you buy an Edouard, you try to make do at striker, you hope Martinelli comes good, you use the money to buy Partey and Aouar and strengthen the midfield, which is an issue, and you take the medicine now and move forward? Is there any argument that taking your medicine now and moving forward was right? Or are you totally comfortable with the idea that this 31-year-old for the next 3 seasons will be good enough and reliable enough to lead us where we want to go? And that we had, I think some people say no choice. I'm always loath to agree that we have no choice, because we've seen so many times that a great player leaves and a club can get better, right? I hate bringing up Liverpool constantly, but you can name the players they've sold that they actually got better subsequently. So do you have any time for that? Or on a day like today, you're just glad that this guy who's so likable, so important, is tied to the club for 3 more years? And he said, I want to become a club legend. And I certainly think he's in the frame now to with a winner in the FA.
Yeah, definitely. So for me, I don't have as much truck with the argument that we should sell him now. I think that the argument I'd have more truck with is keeping him for the final year of his contract and then dealing with it next summer. But I think there are a few things to this, right? I think, first of all, like you, I'm very hopeful about Martinelli, and I hope that this is a kind of, the next couple of seasons, Aubameyang's still the main man while Martinelli comes up, and hopefully we've already got the replacement, which will hopefully abate any of the drop-off that we might get from Aubameyang in the 3rd year. The way I'd put it, though, is that whatever we did, I made a decision personally. I was just going to take the best of whatever we did, because this is another one of those things in life where several things are right and wrong at the same time. So yes, it is brilliant, and yes, it is a concern. Of course it is. Like there is no getting away from that. The things I'll say about the concerns, first of all, I would say with Ozil, it's not a fitness thing. It's not an age thing. That's not why he's proved to be such a bad contract. It's not because he's nursing hamstring injuries or he can't get, or he's too slow. It's the motivation. That's what it is, I think, anyway, with Ozil. He lost the motivation. So obviously that's a risk with Aubameyang. Personally, I don't really see that risk in it. Well, not that I don't see it. I think it's very small risk. I don't think he loses his motivation. I believe him when he says he wants to be a club legend. And I remember something Clive said a few weeks ago where he said he felt like Arsenal really suited him, that this isn't a player for Real Madrid or Barcelona. This is a guy maybe a bit like Henry, who enjoys being the main man at a club like Arsenal. But what I'd say, Elliot, really is there is good and bad in every decision we could have made here. We could have taken the medicine, sold him now. We'd have been a worse team next season, because we're trying to replace a midfield, and that's going to be really difficult. Imagine trying to replace Aubameyang's goals as well. Like, how on earth would we do that in this market? So there's kind of that side to it. But if there's going to be good and bad in anything we do, I will take the good and bad by keeping the guy who pretty much guarantees 20 Premier League goals a season. And if that means in 2 seasons' time we have to eat a little bit of decline, okay. It's kind of damned if you do and damned if you don't. So let's take the damned if you do and keep the guy. And I think also maintain some of that momentum and that good feeling that we've had around the club over the last kind of couple of months or so. I do think, only in the short term, but I do think that's important as well. So look, good and bad in everything we could have done. I'll take the good that means we've got a golden boot challenger still in our team, and we don't have to worry about replacing him for the time being.
Yeah, I'm thrilled he stays. I love the player. I can't wait to watch him stay with Arsenal. I think it is always fair to try to at least intellectually wrap your head around the multiple dimensions that a situation can be considered. And maybe today's not a day for that. Today's a day to celebrate it. And I totally understand that. I think Rodney makes a really interesting point too. We are going to be a bit of a land of misfit toys right now, because Arsenal aren't challenging for titles. If Aubameyang wasn't 31, if he was 28 at the peak of his powers, if he's playing this well, would he resign? Would Barcelona make an offer we couldn't refuse if he was 29, not 31? Would Real Madrid? So I think we are in a position as a club where we have to also do things that aren't the perfect player at the perfect price at the perfect age. And that's why all the moves are open to a little interpretation. And I think, to be fair, Facebook user, hi Facebook user, by the way, I really enjoyed our dinner last night. Science has changed now. Look at Ronaldo, LeBron. If you look after yourself, there's longevity. That's true. I mean, we are probably going to have to examine aging curves in football a little bit as time goes by. Arsenal, we used to joke about how Arsenal players couldn't stay fit. Knock wood. I think, we're starting to see the benefits of some sports science. Tim, I think, were you on the tour of the Arsenal facilities, the training facilities and stuff the other year that they did, and just how you said it was like NASA or something with what they're doing there, right, to keep players fit. So we'll get into transfers in a moment, but I think that's another point, right, is that our ability to keep players fit. And if anybody's going to know if Aubameyang has that freakish capability to stay fit, Arsenal would be the ones. They measure, they know these players inside and out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's quite interesting as well, maybe this is a segue into the transfers bit, but some of the goalkeepers we're linked with who are all kind of linked with the goalkeeping coach. And we spoke, didn't we, in the summer when we talked about, the Martinez-Leno conundrum, and we kind of said, I wonder how much Arteta will go to his goalkeeper. You'd hope that he'd go to his goalkeeping coaches and say, where do you think the ceiling is here with these guys? And take that into account, particularly with a very specific position like goalkeeping. And coaches don't even see the goalkeepers a lot of the time because they're not involved in the main session. And you wonder how much Arteta has defaulted. I'm absolutely certain the club will have spoken to the fitness guys, but how much have they put the decision in there? Well, not put the decision in their hands, but how much of a factor has it been? Like, what they've talked about and what they've said. So absolutely. And they, some of the stuff they're doing in the gym at London Colney, and all the software and the virtual reality and things like that they've got access to, and like bone density and all of that, like they will have so much information about this. So I think there is an element to which you have to look, that you can only tell so much, right? He might do his cruciate ligament on Saturday and he might be finished, but you can reduce risk when you take these decisions. And I'm like, I just don't think they could have any more information to make that decision.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, just real quick, we had a comment that I thought was interesting, saying that Aubameyang was probably told about the incoming transfers. I don't know if I believe that was done, as cut and dried as they told him who they're signing. But I do think, I hate to reference Van Persie when he did that ridiculous letter to the fans that made him look like a complete fool. But, he said he wasn't happy with the direction of the club. As much as that was ridiculous to some extent, I do think these players want to know what the club is planning if they're going to tie, especially the last few years of their contract, to the club. He talks about wanting to be a legend. He talks about the Arsenal family, something that we've heard spoken of by Arteta. So it leads me to the next question. What signings are still ahead? Do you believe that Aubameyang was given some assurances about the ambition the club had in the market? I think it is interesting. There's no FFP right now. There's an FFP holiday. There is the opportunity for the club to put a bunch of money in and distance themselves. I mean, you always want to take advantage of inefficiencies, right? Of opportunities where you have leverage. We've got a billionaire owner. We've got an FFP holiday. You've got small clubs struggling with huge revenue declines who maybe cannot spend like they would have in other times. If Stan wanted to spend, and if he believes in what Arteta is doing, and if he believes in Edu's vision, and if he wants to put money in, he can make up more ground this window than he would in most windows when prices may be down and other spending may be down as well. So do you think that maybe we will see that kind of ambitiousness? What do you think still might happen? Party now our side, is it going to be Coutinho and Thiago and Messi? No, I kid. The two everybody wants to hear about are Aouar and Party. But what do you anticipate still might be ahead?
So I don't anticipate any kind of investment from Stan Kroenke, unfortunately. And what you were saying there, look at Chelsea. They've just gone, right, we're taking a chance here. We can see that there's a chance to go from that third, fourth to first. So let's go for it, which they've done with their women's team as well, by the way. But at the same time, I fully expect another midfielder to come in. I think it might be tight run in terms of the transfer deadline, because I think we're probably going to have, we're certainly, I think, going to have to sell at least one more player after Martinez. even after Torreira, maybe we'll still have to make a decision on between Bellerin and Maitland-Niles, maybe. Certainly, if we want 2 midfielders, we would have to do that. And that's going to take some time. So I see that shaking out. But like I said on the pod the other day, I think what Arsenal have done is they've taken care of all the low-hanging fruit. They've done the deals they could do, including this contract. And, to get that midfielder, I think they always knew that they were going to need to sell and that was going to take time. I think we'll only have time for the one central midfielder, as much as I'd like a couple of them. No idea who that's going to be. I really don't know enough about our or Party, to be honest, to say which ones we should prioritise. I've very rarely seen either of them play. But I think if we don't get one of those, we'll get another. That's how I see it going down. So I see Martinez going, I see Torreira going eventually. Then probably one of Bellerin or Maitland-Niles. Maybe Maitland-Niles will be the one to go, which will be unfortunate. And then I think, I reckon on transfer deadline day, we're going to be sitting up at night, hoping we've got this midfielder signing over the line. That's how I see it shaking out. And I think that'll be all we can realistically do in this window.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because, look, I don't want to put down Mohamed El Neni, who had a perfectly nice performance against a pretty crappy Fulham side, it has to be said. Ceballos will be in, and I think he looks like a player who's ready to really, really go up a level. So that's exciting. But it's Xhaka and Ceballos, and everything beyond that, the quality really drops down. Ozil doesn't look in the plans. Willock is still sort of figuring things out if he even stays. Smith Rowe, I think we have high hopes for, but is he someone who's going to play more than Cup and Europa League if he doesn't go on loan himself? Guendouzi looks like he might be off. I do think a big part of this, Tim, is obviously that incomings are going to some extent depend on whether we are able to get the outgoings right. Not even necessarily to fund things, but just from a squad size standpoint. I mean, Kolasinac was supposed to go. Now he doesn't look like he wants to. Is Socrates going to go? I guess Mustafi is not, obviously, given that he's injured. Will Guendouzi go? There's some talk, people thinking we can get Ozil off the books. I really don't see how that happens. I think he's slated for another season of $350,000 a week playing Fortnite. I will ask you this, though, just out of curiosity. The reporting says that the new contract makes Aubameyang the highest earner at the club. Some have interpreted that as meaning it's because Ozil will be off. I don't interpret it that way. I'm assuming it means with incentives, if he hits all the incentives, the escalators, if you want to call them that he can then achieve beyond Ozil. But do you read into that reporting as Ozil being gone or what I've said?
No. I completely agree with you. And in fact, the wording I saw last week was he will become the highest paid player, which I took to mean that once Ozil goes. But yeah, I'm sure it's heavily incentivized. And you know what? That's fine with me. I was thinking about the structure of the Aubameyang deal, and sometimes you get those contracts where you get a sliding scale salary, or the salary becomes obviously you have to get the player to agree to it, and that's difficult. But almost in an ideal world, you say to Aubameyang, do you know what, we will give you Ozil money this season because we pretty much know you're going to produce, and then after that your salary will go down, but your bonuses will go way up. But yeah, you've got to get the player to agree to that, and probably most wouldn't. But I feel like that would be the ideal structure of a deal for Arsenal.
Yeah, I mean I definitely tend to agree with that. I mean, John O'Gibbon said, "Oh Lord, Arsenal Twitter will be unbearable if we wait until midnight transfer deadline day."
When is Arsenal Twitter not unbearable? We've known about Aubameyang for weeks now, and it was unbearable with people demanding the announcement. So I'd say just another day in paradise. Yeah.
If you had to guess outgoings, what would you say the outgoings might be in terms of, obviously the incomings? I think Aouar and Partey seem to be what's on the agenda now. I mean, the Edouard links were maybe a little less concrete. I would love that. But in terms of people who are off, do you have any sense? Torreira definitely off. Do you think we can move Kohler, or is he going to be here for another season? Who's going? Who's not?
So I think Torreira will go. Obviously Martinez is pretty much gone already. I think so. I think one of Bellerin or Maitland-Niles will go to make way for the midfielder. For one midfielder, if we want two, I think that would depend on Guendouzi going either, as a part exchange, as a palm greaser for a move, or just to get the money and get that second midfielder. So one way or another, we're going to end up with either Guendouzi as a midfield option and possibly reintegrated, or we're going to end up with a new player there. So I think if you're going to push me for a prediction, I predict that Maitland-Niles is going to go. Actually, I think that he'll be the reluctant sale that we will make, and that we will bring one of our or Partey in.
Yeah, I mean, I can certainly see that. Do you have a preference? I mean, everybody seems to want Partey. Are you in the camp that says that's the right move for us, or would you prefer OR?
So again, like to reiterate, I don't know that much about either player. I prefer OR's age profile, though. I think Partey, if we're putting, I wouldn't worry about it as much, but we've already committed a lot to Aubameyang and to Willian into their mid-30s. And, for us to be able to, for the long-term health of the squad, I think we've got to hit that middle age bracket a little bit more now. I think Aubameyang and Willian has to be it in terms of players that, we're signing to contracts into their kind of 30s or decline years. So I guess I'd take our on that basis.
I think I agree with you. Yeah. It will be interesting. I mean, I think also our ability to move on from the back three means we would need a midfield signing. I don't think we have anyone at the club good enough that week in, week out, you'd say, I want to go to a midfield three, and by the way, we showed against Fulham that even against small teams, this back three has evolved to where we can, potentially get away with it. So let's move on to a final point, just real quick. Who starts against West Ham? We've discussed the Pepe and Willian thing. There are battles for places now. Lacazette and Nketiah, Pepe and Willian. Saka didn't make it into the side. Maitland-Niles held on to a spot that I think a lot of people felt, against a smaller team, could Saka have provided a little more attacking flair? If you look at Lewis Ambrose's tactics column for Arsblog, though, he really highlighted the different positions and areas of the pitch that Maitland-Niles has to take up in this formation. And maybe one of the challenges for Saka is, can he do that? Can he figure out how to be, the inside defender if Tierney goes? Can he figure out where to be in the midfield when Tierney moves outside, when we're in possession? Because we really are shifting shape a lot. And part of being able to play is not just being a good player, but being able to pick up the instruction of what Arteta wants, where you need to be in different phases of play. So do you have some predictions about starting? Do you think it's everybody who's good keeps their place, some rotation? What do you think he'll lean towards?
So I read Lewis's piece as well, and one of the things that stuck out is that Maitland-Niles was a real decoy. He didn't actually get the ball that often, but his movement was very, very important. I think the back end of the team will stay the same. I think Maitland-Niles will keep his place ahead of Saka. I think Arteta will be patient with Bukayo Saka, and I think he'll take the view that Europa League group stages are coming soon, Carabao Cup's coming soon. He'll get his minutes, and I think he'll ease him into the season that way. So I think Aubameyang will start. I think Lacazette will start. I think Ceballos will come in for El Neni. I think that's probably pretty straightforward. I also think Willian will keep his place ahead of Pepe. I think Pepe will be on the bench again, purely because Willian played so well. And assuming he trains well all week, and we know how much stock Arteta puts into how players train, then I think he'll stay in the team. And again, there's going to be plenty of football to go around. And I think really it's only the only players that I think their places in Arteta's mind are sacred are Xhaka and Aubameyang. Maybe to an extent Lacazette, although I can see Nketiah, kind of he nudged in there a little bit last season. But so I'll say Ceballos in for El Neni will be the only change, is my prediction.
Yeah, I mean, that I could see it. I absolutely could see it. I think that Saka could come in, but would it be? Here's an interesting question: if Saka came in, would it be for Maitland-Niles, or would it potentially be for like Willian? I mean, how congested is that right side of the front three going to get between Pepe and Willian and Saka, who's played there as well?
Yeah, and Arteta seems to really like him there. He persevered with him, and Saka's looked more and more comfortable in that position. I think particularly when you look at how we really like to switch the play, and we've bought all these players who are really good at switching play, defenders, and Willian we saw at Fulham, great at switching play. Saka did it in the Community Shield because he comes in on that left foot. It could do. There's definitely options there. I just think he'll stick with what worked just on this occasion, just because there's a week between games. That's not going to happen very often as well this season. We're not often going to get 7 days before games with the Europa League and the Carabao Cup coming in. Very congested season. So I think he'll go with continuity on this occasion. And after this week, maybe we'll see some changes, particularly with Liverpool in mind. Yeah, I agree with that. And thank you guys. We love you, and we love you for being here. As we always say, it's it's just a thrill to be able to do this. And thanks for putting up with the video thing. Tim, what do you think? I mean, format seemed to work okay. Something we could do maybe even in the future. Yeah, seemed all right. So I think all things being equal, I'm pretty happy to leave it there. How about you? Yeah, absolutely. Enjoyed it. Yeah, I enjoyed it as well. So look, thank you everybody who joined. We'll definitely try to do more of these. We'll try to work in the comments and questions a little more, and I'll maybe try to do a little less of put this on the screen and move that on the screen and try to play producer while doing the show. But I think now that we know this works, we can do halftime shows, we can do pregame shows. Tim, just sit in front of your computer and wait for me to call. And you know what? We'll get Clive on camera. If you do want to see Clive on camera, it is worth pointing out that we do release the video version of the regular podcast for patrons. So if you do want to see Clive, I am informed his glasses are awesome. Tim, were you as impressed with his glasses as the listeners? They just look like glasses. Absolutely.
You
absolutely.
Are?
Yeah.
I don't understand the glasses game. I'm not in the glasses game, obviously.
Neither me.
Is that the brand new shirt to who's? Is there a player on the back?
No, I don't do that.
You don't do players because you're a grown man. Yeah,
indeed. I only bought it. I have a thing where I've got every single shirt that Arsenal won the FA Cup in, including the 1930s ones. So when we won the cup final, I decided to go for it.
That's awesome. Well, I do thank you. You can find Tim on Twitter at Stoberto, and we will talk to you throughout the week. I think for Patreon, we've got a rewatch pod coming. We'll have a regular pod at the end of the week, and of course, all the stuff surrounding the West Ham game. So good to chat, man.
My pleasure, as always.
You bet. All right. My name is Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter at Yankee Gunner. We'll look forward to speaking with you in the future in whatever format we do it. I have to admit, I'm not entirely sure to end this. So I'm going to do this. And I'm going to say thanks for joining. We love you. And we will talk to you after Arsenal 10, West Ham 0.